Good afternoon. Good afternoon and welcome to this lecture. And today's subject is attraction. Attraction can take many forms. I put together a model like this, a few influencing factors on attraction. Attraction/attractiveness. So we're going to start to talk about appearance here. Factors that affect the rated degree of attractiveness in a human appearance. So we start with a female face here. So how do you do research like this? Well, you could say there's two main ways to perform studies like this. One is that you take photos, in this case female faces, portrait photos, and then you let people rate the degree of attractiveness in the different faces. How attractive is this face? And then you might believe, well, that depends on who you ask. Because attractiveness is in the eye of the beholder, right? There's no resemblance between what different humans find attractive. It's completely a random factor. No, there's a huge degree of resemblance in different persons' ratings of attractiveness. Most people would find, for instance, this face as more attractive than, than my face, for instance. Most people would rate that face as most attractive. So there's a lot of resemblance. There's a difference in different faces' average level of attractiveness. And then another thing, people tend to believe that what is rated as attractive is very different between different cultures. And of course there might be some cultural differences, but again there is quite a lot of resemblance. The overlap in what is found attractive between different cultures seems to be quite big. Faces of Europeans that Europeans tend to find attractive, also Africans tend to find attractive. Faces of Africans that Africans find attractive also tends to be rated as quite attractive by Europeans, and so on. So what is attractive and what is less attractive, there seems to be quite a lot of agreement about this. So one way to conduct research like this is that you take pictures, photos, and you let people rate those. And every face receives average level of rated attractiveness. And then you pull your ruler out and you start measuring things in the faces. And then you find some kind of measures that correlate with the average rated attractiveness in different faces. How is the rated attractiveness, for instance, related to the, size of the eyes or size of the nose and so on? So correlational studies. But as we all know, correlational studies, there are risks for confounders. Because some measures in the face might be correlated with something else, and it's this something else that affects the rated attractiveness rather than this measure in itself. So how can you do those kind of studies? If you want to be more sure that this is not only a correlation, but it's a causal effect of some measure in the face on the rated attractiveness, what do you do then? Well, then you do an experiment. What defines an experiment? What do you have? You have a manipulation. You have a manipulation of the independent variable. So, for instance, if you want to see if the size of the eyes has a causal effect on the degree of rated attractiveness, you can take photos and then you manipulate the size of the eyes. So you have several faces, it's the same person, and the only thing that differs between them is the size of the eyes. If that manipulation of the size of the eyes has an effect, is associated with the level of rated attractiveness, then you can be pretty sure that it's the size of the eyes and nothing else that has an effect on the rated attractiveness. So two main kinds of studies, correlational studies and studies, experiments with manipulation. And both these kind of studies have indicated that there are some factors that affect the degree of rated attractiveness. For instance, this thing seems to be related. A high upper part of the head. The bigger the distance between the top of the head and the eyes, the longer that distance is, the higher the degree of rated attractiveness.
There must be some upper limit.
Yeah, there must be. No. So this is probably mainly found in natural photos, not manipulated photos. So big distance on the upper part of the face, there should be a lot there, long distance, and the opposite in the lower part of the face. So the distance between B and C here, the eyes and the chin, the smaller that distance is, the higher the level of rated attractiveness. So a lot here and a little here. So some kind of cone head still. Female faces, it has been found that small chin, so the distance from the mouth to the top of the chin, the smaller that distance is, the higher the level of rated attractiveness. So it should be a lot here, a little here in the lower part, except for one thing that should be big in the lower part of the face, that's the lips. So big distance between E and F. The bigger that distance is, the higher the level of rated attractiveness. And Angelina seems to know this, or at least the photographer seems to know this, because what is she doing in this photo? She's faking a bigger distance between the eyes and the top of the head and a smaller distance between the eyes and the top of the chin by leaning the face forward. I don't know if they see the association with research, but I think it's quite common to see things like that. Some other factors here. Smooth skin. You can put a value on the smoothness of people's skin, and the smoother their skin is, the higher the level of attractiveness. And symmetry, if you can split the face, in half, and then you can measure distances differently on the left and the right side. For instance, if you split it in half, how big is the distance to the center of the eye on the left side of the face, or her right side on the other side of the face? And the ears and so on. And the more alike those distances are, the more symmetrical is the face. And some people have more symmetrical faces, and some of us has much less symmetrical faces. And there tends to be a positive correlation here. The more symmetrical the face is, the higher the degree of rated attractiveness. So, of course, there is much more research about these sizes of the eyes and size of the nose and so on, but this seems to be quite stable results that is found. Okay, if we go below the neck, okay, a few factors here. The measures here that have been given most research interest is the relation between the waist and the hip. Some studies have found that narrow waist is associated with high level of rated attractiveness. So the shorter the distance between A and B here, the higher the level of attractiveness. Okay, other studies have indicated that it's not the waist measure in itself that it's important. It's rather the ratio between the waist and the hip. The waist-hip ratio. So some studies, mainly with natural photos, have found that the lower the waist-hip ratio, you take the waist measure, distance, divided by the hip measure. The lower that rate is, which means the more distinctive your waist is, the higher the level of rated attractiveness. So the more you look like a bee, the higher the level of rated attractiveness. Other studies have indicated that there is an upper limit here, or lower limit. It can be 2 distinct waists, at least if you manipulate the photos. So there's quite a lot of studies that indicate that 0.7 is the optimal ratio here. That's where the female body is rated as the most attractive. When we have a waist-hip ratio, 0.7. Long legs seems to be associated with high level of rated attractiveness. BMI, I found at least one study here that indicated that 19, 20, something like that, is the optimal BMI for a female. So we have a look at these data. So those two are from one study. So this is natural photos. So every dot there is a female figure. So we see here a negative correlation between the waist-hip ratio and attractiveness rating. But you see, it's not a strong correlation here. There is some negative correlation here, but it's not a very strong one. However, the relation between BMI, it's from the same study, so it's the same female figures here. The relation between the association between body mass index here, BMI, and attractiveness rating seems a very strong one, although it's curvilinear here. You see here, 1920, somewhere there, those figures are rated as the most attractive. Less than that, less attractive. More than that, less attractive. And the data points here are grouped very tightly to this curve, so it's very strong association. This is from one study where they had photos of female bodies and they manipulated the waist-hip ratio. So they could make them very extreme here. You see, it's very seldom women have a waist-hip ratio of 0.5 here. But in these photos, they could manipulate, and you could see that the optimal level of attractiveness was received at the waist-hip ratio of 0.7 by both female raters and male raters. So this does not mean that men are rated as attractive if they have a waist-hip ratio of 0.7. 0.9 seems to be the optimal waist-hip ratio for men. But of course, men don't tend to have much waist. If anything, it tends to go over 1, at least at some age. So, who will we have on a picture now, do you think? Let's... Naked man, no. You wish. Well, wait until the next picture. Some things are the same for male faces. Smooth skin. We all see here Brad Pitt has a bad day, but he's still quite attractive. Smooth skin and symmetry. And so I read somewhere that Brad Pitt is like the most symmetrical male face that have ever been found. That's his asset. It's worth $20 million a year to have that symmetrical face. Other things are different here. While for women it's a negative association between chin size and attractiveness, it's the opposite here for men. So the longer the chin, the bigger the distance between mouth and the top of the chin, the bigger that distance is, the higher the level of rated attractiveness. Wide chin, it should be wide. I don't know exactly where that is measured, but it should be long, it should be wide, it should be big, and the wide jaws also. The wider the jaws, it's the caricature of Superman with a huge chin like this. Thick eyebrows also seems to be associated with high level of rated attractiveness. Okay, if we go below the waist, below the neck here for men, also LOS-katalogen. I didn't dare to Google on anything else on my work computer. Okay. So we have something similar here. Waist-chest ratio. Because men don't tend to have so much waist here. Waist or hip. The relation tends to be quite non-existent here. But waist and chest. So if you divide the waist measure with the chest measure, you get the waist-chest ratio. And the smaller that ratio is, the higher the level of rated attractiveness. So the more the upper body is formed like a V, the higher the level of rated attractiveness. And of course, there must be some optimal point there. It can't be. But on natural photos, it tends to be. In the natural range, it tends to be that the more formed the upper body is like a V, the higher the level of rated attractiveness. A little more, quite well. BMI 23 is the optimal here for men. And height, of course, that's difficult to study when people have a look at photos. Because if you have a photo of a person against a neutral background, you can't really tell how tall that person is. But there are some indications that women prefer tall men. For instance, this kind of faked personal ads studies. So researcher puts personal ads into newspapers. Hello, I'm looking for a companion. Hello, I'm a man who is 192 centimeters long or something like that. Everything equal. Hello, I'm a man and I'm 137 centimeters tall. I don't know. Tall men, everything equal, tall men tends to get more answers to their personal ads. Indicates that women prefer tall men. Everything else equal, they prefer tall men. Of course, there should be some kind of optimal point there also, which I will show in a second. A Polish study here, they found that married men tend to be taller than unmarried men. Adjusted for age, of course. So tall men, the chances of getting married is bigger than short men. Men with children tend to be taller on average than men without children, adjusted for age. So tall men have higher degree of reproductive fitness. That's the title of that paper. However, I had a look. This is Sorjonen et al., not yet published. So this is Swedish data. We have 49,321 Swedish men born between 1949 and 1951. And then we have measures from them all the way from 1974, when they're about 24 years age, until they're 58 years of age. And for every year I predict the odds of them being married, depending on their height. And the height is measured when they were 19, 20 years old. Okay, so the upper line here is married versus unmarried. So we see the highest odds to be married rather than unmarried is highest for those who are about 180, 185 centimeters long. If you're taller than that, the odds go down. If you're shorter than that, the odds go down. Married versus not married. So married versus anything else. Unmarried, partnership, divorced, and so on. The same. Well, more or less the same. We have an optimal point here, 175, 180 centimeters long. And the last line here, not unmarried, everything else but unmarried, compared with being explicitly unmarried. We have the highest odds here for 190 centimeters. So the general picture here is that the highest odds to becoming married, or at least not becoming unmarried, you have if you're quite tall, but not if you're among the tallest here. And of course we could speculate, why is that so? Why is that so? I don't know. I don't have the last answer to this. But I don't know. Well, I don't know. Maybe you should get some women into our research group so we could ask them.
Wouldn't that consist of the perfect height to see a woman with a tall head and a small chin?
Yeah, but in that case, you would think everyone is beautiful if you're shorter or taller, so that should increase the odds for those to be married. So in that case, you should have the opposite way of relation here.
No, but if you're 180 tall, then most of the women would be perceived
as beautiful.
Higher forehead.
You have the optimal. No, it should be the opposite. No, it should be opposite. Because if you're very short, all the women are looking down on you. And then it looks like, oh, they have huge forehead like this. You want to be in this paper? We're going to send it to Nature, so. Well, I'm not sure it will be sent to Nature. But that's because that Pavlovsky there, it's published in Nature, and the only thing they found is married men are taller than unmarried men. But we have much nicer data here.
What is not unmarried?
Well, some of them are they explicitly they are married. So we have these few categories: married, unmarried, divorced, widowed, and so on. So not unmarried is everything else. So it could be married, it could be divorced, widowed, and so on. Because it's difficult to know exactly how going to make these comparisons. I made 3 different ones here. But the general picture here is pretty much the same. There is some optimal height here. You shouldn't be too tall and even less too short. But if we're going to make some kind of story here, if we have these factors here, or associated, have positive association with rated attractiveness among females, and here we have factors that are associated, have positive association with rated attractiveness in males. Why? Why would men find women with smooth skin, full lip symmetry, distinctive waist, and small chin attractive? Why not the opposite? Why aren't men attracted by women with wrinkled skin, no lips, no symmetry, no waist, and a huge chin instead? There's nothing that says that the aesthetical preferences should be this instead of the opposite. If we all would carry around the opposite preferences, we would find that as just as natural. But now these factors seems to be associated with rated attractiveness. Why?
Isn't kind of the point that they're supposed to be as diverse as possible? That you want to have you want to have something that's very female and something that's very male. I mean, they are basically opposites.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I mean, a female that does not conform to the female attractiveness ratio. I mean, female.
So the female who is the opposite of an average man.
A female that's the opposite of the female ideal.
Yeah.
Is basically a man.
Yeah. Yeah. I hear you have Magnus Enquist. You have had him, yes? Yeah, that's one theory. But then, of course, you would ask, why would men be attracted by women who don't look like men? Rather the opposite. Why? It could be fit in the same theory here. Why?
Well, it doesn't seem to correlate with levels of hormones, levels of estrogen and
Yes, that's some theory. But why? Do you think this is indicators of high or low levels of some hormone? Yeah, that's the main point. Yeah.
Women who regard other women as attractive must rate the same way.
Yeah, men and women tend to rate in a similar way. Women who are rated as attractive by men tend also to be rated as attractive by women. Men who are rated as attractive by women also tend to be rated as attractive by men. So we pretty much seem to know each other's preferences. So it's no.
It correlates with testosterone and estrogen.
Yeah, that's what we're coming to. But we could take a few points here. How does a woman with smooth skin, full lips, a waist, and a small chin different from one with wrinkled skin, no lips, no symmetry, no waist, and this probably is associated with youth. Women with these characteristics probably tend to be quite young. Women with opposite characteristics probably tend to be quite old. But then, of course, the next question would be, why would men be attracted by women who signals youth? Because, for women, there's, I don't know how strong the association is, but I guess I could say there's quite strong association between age and fertility. Young women tend to be more fertile than older women. So, these are signals of fertility. Of course, if you want to dig even deeper, we could ask, why would men be attracted by women who signals fertility? Why? Why not the opposite? Oh, look, she's optimally not fertile. I find that attractive. Why would men be attracted by signals of fertility?
Because that species would die out pretty fast.
Yeah, if you had the man with the opposite preferences, he would have a wonderful life, no problems with that. But one thing would probably be lacking in his life. What? Offspring. Yes. And if there's some kind of genetic, biological base to these kind of preferences, in the next generation, there would be no carriers of that kind of preferences. So men with these kind of preferences have, on average, probably tended to get more offspring than those with the opposite preferences, and therefore there have been a natural selection for the biological base that gives people these kind of preferences. That's the evolutionary argument. Of course, Magnus Enquist would argue that in a very smart way. Well, yes, of course. I wouldn't compare myself with Magnus at least. I know I always get nervous when I speak with him. I'm always afraid, Kimmo, you're so stupid, he will. But I asked one of his, not him directly, but one of those who have made that research with him, why would men, in that case, if those are signals of non-maleness, why would men be attracted by women who signals non-maleness? Well, maybe because those who have been attracted by signals of non-maleness in a similar fashion have tended to get offspring in a higher degree than men with opposite preferences. So it could be fit, at least to some degree, into the same model here. Okay, you also mentioned estrogen. And of course, this is probably quite complex here, but the little I know, estrogen, high levels of estrogen are associated with full lips. Estrogen affects the distribution of fat in the body. That's what I read somewhere. So women with a relatively high estrogen level, their fat tends to become distributed to the lips, to the hips, to somewhere other places. So they get a form that tends to be rated as attractive by men. Okay, so these could also be signals of high estrogen levels. And estrogen, in relation to comparison with testosterone, has a negative effect on bone growth in the body. So if you have high estrogen levels, women with high estrogen levels probably tend to have a smaller chin than women with lower estrogen levels. So small chin could be seen as an indication of high estrogen levels. And the association between fertility and estrogen is far from clear-cut, but I think women have to have at least some estrogen levels in order to be fertile. The little I read, it says that estrogen is necessary for ovulation. So no estrogen, no ovulation, no kids. So you have to have some estrogen levels, at least. Okay, so that would be the evolutionary explanation of that, and it's presented in those papers. There's quite a few written about this. How about the male factors here? Why would men with those characteristics be rated as attractive? Tall with V-formed upper body symmetry, big skin, big chin, and so on. Why not the opposite? And what would be the opposite? You're too young for this, but I immediately thought, well, this is the opposite of Danny DeVito. Danny DeVito is 145 centimeters tall. So it's not that his wife there is very tall. It's Danny who is very short. Why isn't that the optimal male sex symbol in the world? Why? Why is it factors like that? What does that signal?
I guess you could argue that it's evolutionary has signaled someone who's a family protector. I guess who can protect his offspring.
Yeah, probably these kind of factors are positively associated with some kind of physical ability. That also, but think about it. Why would that be? I ask why once more, why would that explain? But yeah, why would women be attracted by men who signal high testosterone levels? Yeah, but why not go for the strong immediately? Well, I come back to that. Yeah, maybe. But men seem to be pretty fertile often, at least quite often. I don't think Danny DeVito has any problems with fertility, for instance. If you as a woman had tended to prefer partners like that, and now we're talking the Stone Age here, you tended to prefer partners like this instead of Danny DeVito, so everything else equal, you choose this instead of Danny DeVito. What have happened? Was it good to have a partner with those kind of characteristics? Yeah, why? Yeah, better physical ability. They probably brought more calories home to the home in the evening. So it increased your chances of surviving and your offspring's chances of surviving. If you were together with Danny DeVito, it was nice 2 weeks, but then you starved to death. So it's probably been, well, of course, this might be downsides to having a partner with these factors also, but some kind of, somehow it has probably been advantageous. So that's one possibility. So women with these kind of preferences have survived, and their offspring have survived to a higher degree than women with the opposite kind of preferences. So there's been an evolutionary selection of a biological base that gives women this kind of preferences. That would be the evolutionary argument.
What about the intercultural research? I mean, the low waist to hip ratio.
Yeah.
Will that be?
We'll have a look at that. Well, yeah, I don't know. We'll have a look at the waist-hip ratio in a moment on the female face, because there are probably some intercultural differences between these factors. Another leg of argument here is that this indicates high testosterone levels, because testosterone have a positive effect on bone growth. So men with high levels of testosterone probably tend to become taller, they become more muscular, and the upper body becomes more V-formed. They get bigger chins, wider jaws, symmetry. Yeah, might be. I think there is. I think I read that there is a relation between those also. That men with high levels of testosterone tend to be more symmetrical than those with lower levels of testosterone. But then, of course, the question is, why would women find men who signal high testosterone levels attractive, rather than those who signal, I'm not carrying any testosterone around? Why? What's so good with testosterone? Well, here is one theory. Is testosterone a nice substance? No, it's a poison. It's a horrible substance. If I would fill my body up with testosterone tonight, how would I feel tomorrow? I would probably feel horrible. Testosterone, there are some indications that testosterone has a negative effect on the functioning of the immune system. So if I would fill my body up with testosterone, my immune system would say goodnight and I would become sick. Doesn't that sound very, very silly in that case? Testosterone have negative effects on immune system functioning, and women think this is attractive. It should be the opposite. Oh, look, that stupid guy is carrying around a lot of testosterone. He will be sick soon, so let's avoid him. Why in that case would women think that men who signal high testosterone levels are attractive? Why?
Because having a high testosterone level and at the same time being healthy is a strong immune system.
Yeah, exactly. If I signal, which I don't do then, but if somebody would signal high testosterone levels and at the same time be healthy, that indicates that he has a very well-functioning immune system. Because if he hadn't, he wouldn't be able to carry all that testosterone around. So to signal testosterone is an honest signal of a well-functioning immune system. Honest because it's difficult to fake. If a man who didn't have a well-functioning testosterone immune system, still for some reason would have a high testosterone level, he wouldn't manage that. He would become sick and out of the competition. So it's an honest signal. It's pretty much if we want to signal I am rich, how should we do that? Well, one opportunity is to buy a t-shirt that says I'm rich. Is that a good signal of richness? Would we buy that? Oh, look, a rich guy. Why? How do you know? He's got a t-shirt that says I'm rich. Is that the honest signal of being rich?
No.
Why not?
Because anyone can do it.
Anyone can do it. It's very easy to fake. So what would be an honest signal of being rich?
Going to school by helicopter.
Going to school by helicopter, having a very expensive car, having very expensive clothes and so on. So factors that make you less rich are honest signals of you being rich, and it's the same here. Factors that could make you sick are honest signals of you being a very healthy individual. So that's one argument. And of course we shouldn't take this only by face value. Let's have a look. Well, I have a few studies here. This is from one study. We have pictures from 59 young women. Okay, and their estrogen levels are measured. And then we let people have a look at their photographs and rate them on different factors here. Rated femininity, positive correlation. The higher the woman's estrogen levels, the more feminine she's rated as. The higher the estrogen level, the more attractive she's rated as, and more healthy she's rated as. So high estrogen levels are associated with positive ratings on these factors. I don't know if you see the difference. Of those 59, we take those 10 women with the highest estrogen levels, and we morph their faces together. So that's the morph of, that's the face of high estrogen. Well, at least in this study. And that is those 10 women with the lowest estrogen levels. And I guess the most distinctive feature here, difference here, as I react to, is the size of the chin here. It's smaller here and larger there. There might be some other differences also. Okay, and they let people also rate these two morphs, and people tend to find these faces more attractive. A Polish study, we have a lot of women, we have their photos, and we dichotomize the size of the waist and the size of the breasts. So we get 4 groups here. Narrow waist, large breast, narrow waist, small breast, and so on. And we measure the estrogen levels. And the group here with the highest estrogen levels is those women with narrow waist and large breasts, which seems to be pretty much the attractiveness norm in our society also, compared at least with the 3 other groups. So this is our indication that there is some kind of association with attractiveness rating and estrogen levels for women. The immunocompetence handicap hypothesis. And you might have come across this general handicap hypothesis presented by Zahavi, 1975, something like that. He argued, and it's quite often a peacock's tail is used as an example. There are indications that female peacocks, they like males with a huge tail like this. There are experiments, for instance, if you take a male with a large tail and you observe his sex life, and then you cut his tail, then you see a deterioration in his sex life. And if you take those feathers that you now have cut off from this male and put them on another male, you see an increase in his sex life. So there are some indications that female peacocks find males with large tail attractive. And then the question is, of course, why? Is a good tail a good thing to be carrying around? No, it's completely useless, except for your sex life. Otherwise, it's completely useless. It's heavy. It tends to get infected by disease. And because it's heavy to be dragging around, it increases the likelihood that you will be eaten up by predators and so on. So it's a very stupid thing to have. And the argument, according to Zahavi's handicap hypothesis, that is exactly why it's so sexy. Because it's a stupid thing to be carrying around. Because if a male is carrying it around and looks healthy and is not yet being eaten by predators, it indicates that that's a real he-man. That's a real he peacock. Okay, well, if he was not in good physical health, if he had not a well-functioning immune system, he wouldn't be able to carry that tail around. So handicapping factors are found attractive because they're honest signals of good quality. And the same kind of theory has been applied to these signals of testosterone. It's found attractive, it's positively associated with rated attractiveness because it's handicapping for the immune system's functioning. But is testosterone, has it a negative effect on immune system's functioning?
But peacocks with small tails,
Yeah, probably. But not as much. And that's probably why they have these huge tails, the males, because it's been evolutionarily selected. And new male peacocks are born and they think, how the heck, why do I have to carry this stupid thing around? Well, you've been given it by evolutionary selection. So they should come to some kind of agreement, the peacocks there. Let's stop this stupid evolution going on. It will be horrible in a few thousand years from now. Like we humans maybe have that. Okay, this is from one study. Of course, it's not easy to manipulate testosterone, at least not among humans. So here we have a study conducted on male mice. So how can you manipulate testosterone levels on male mice? How can you do it? Yes, you pull out the scissors and you castrate them. Because that will lower the testosterone levels. So castrated, we have here a bunch of male mice. We save some of them intact, it's called. They're not castrated. And other male mice are castrated, which leads to lower levels of testosterone. And then we give them lesions. Okay? So we give them lesions and we have a look at how long time does it take for this lesion to heal. So we see here, so this is the size of the lesion, and all of them receive an equally sized lesion at the beginning, at day 0 here. After 3 days, we see the healing process have been faster in the castrated mice. After day 7, after day 21, they're pretty much together here. So the healing process is faster in those male mice that have been castrated. So low testosterone levels is good for the healing of lesions. One indication of the function of the immune system. I found a meta-analysis here also that had a look at this immunocompetence handicap hypothesis, as it's called. And they draw the conclusion that there are some indications of the correctness of these hypotheses. Sometimes studies indicate receive data in accordance with this, but only within certain taxa. So it's found for some animals, but not for others. And for certain measures of immunocompetence, for instance, lesion healing, but not for other measures for immunocompetence. Okay? So they draw the conclusion that there are some indications of the correctness of this hypothesis, but these results should be treated with caution. So it's not completely conclusive yet that this hypothesis is correct. Some adaptations, some intercultural variation in what's measured, what is rated as attractive. So this is from one study, and they have data, a lot of anthropological data from different societies around the world. And these societies are categorized according to food supply. So in some of these societies, the food supply tends to be really bad. So a lot of the members of these societies are quite often on the verge of starvation. So lowest level of the food supply. And the fourth category here, plenty of food around. No problems with the food supply. And the same societies are also categorized according to the female, the ideals of female body. What should a female body look like in order to be maximally attractive? And we have 3 different categories here. It should be a full figure, a lot of it, medium, and thin. So 3 categories of female ideals of female body size, body shape. And we see that among those societies with low food supply, a majority of them have a full female body ideal. none of them think that women should be thin in order to be maximally attractive. While in societies with a lot of food, a good food supply, it's more 50-50. More equal frequencies of societies in the three different categories here. So this indicates that there's some kind of relation between society's food supply and the female ideals about female body shape. And then we could of course ask, why should it be like that? If you look at these societies with low food supply, why do men here tend to think that women should have full figures instead of being thin? Why?
The most difficult, I think. It's the most prestigious of most difficult
to attain.
Yeah.
It would be even more difficult to attain a third arm or something like that, right? Imagine you're a man in this kind of society. And you becoming of age and you're thinking, oh, now it's time to get married. And I have two candidates here. One with a full figure and one who is very thin. I'm thinking, oh, who should I put my effort into? What is probably the most logical, rational decision to be making in this society? If I try to become partnered, if I try to marry with a thin one, is there any possible bad consequences of this? What could it be? Well, she will be dead tomorrow. She will have starved to death. And all my effort will have been in vain. And even if she survives and becomes pregnant, there's a high chance that those kids will never survive. Right? It's dangerous it's a bad horse to be betting on in that kind of society. While the female with full figure in that society, what does it indicate? She's good at getting food. Why is she good at getting food? Well, maybe she is good at getting food herself. Maybe she has a good social network and so on. So if I get married to her, good for me. I will probably increase my own chances of survival because I become part of her gang. Okay? She will have higher chances of surviving. If she becomes pregnant, the children will have higher chances of surviving compared with if their mother are very thin in those kind of societies. So it's probably quite rational to make your bets like this. While in a society with plenty food around, even if a female is very thin, well, she will probably not starve to death anyway. And if we plan to get kids and so on, it will be quite easy for her to put on a few kilos, and it will probably not be so dangerous for the children and so on. So not as important issue in those kind of societies. And we see a more equal distribution between different ideal female shapes in different cultures for when the food supply is plenty. How about male attractiveness? Are the same males always equally attractive? Well, this is from one study. We have pictures. Well, we have pictures of both men and women, but in this study here, they only used the male photos. So I think they had like 20 photos of quite young men. And if we morph all of those together, we receive this face. So that's the average male face. If we morph all the female faces together, we receive that face. So that's the average female face. If we take all 40 photos, we receive that. So that's completely androgynous. Yes, androgynous. That's how Google Translate said it. So that's completely androgynous face. Neither male or female. Okay, what do we do now? Well, we do like this. We measure the differences between the average male and the average female faces. then we exaggerate those differences in the male direction. I think, for instance, the average male have a longer chin than the average female. So we exaggerate that difference, make the chin even longer. So we receive a face like this, a masculinized face. Not the average male face, the masculinized face. And then, of course, we can exaggerate the difference even more and receive a very masculinized face. We could do the same in the opposite direction and receive a femininized face. Okay. But in this study, they use only these male faces, from the androgynous to a very masculine face. And we let female participants have a look at these faces and rate their degree of attractiveness. And what do we see? And we ask them the attractiveness of these faces for two different kind of uses. For a long-term relationship and for a short-term relationship. Is there any difference? What is found as the mostly attractive for a short-term relationship and for a long-term relationship? Another factor they use here is all these female participants also answer to something that's called the BEM sex role inventory. And it measures, for instance, something that's called BEM masculinity. And it's every third question here on this. So the first one here, self-reliant. So people rate themselves. How self-reliant are you? And it's considered the higher the value on that item, the higher degree of BEM masculinity. So self-reliant, defend own beliefs, independent, athletic, assertive, strong personality, and so on. Those are considered as traditionally masculine factors. So, but both women and men can receive high and low values on this BEM masculinity. Other items here measure BEM femininity and some other factors also. But we all only take these factors, these items that are considered to measure masculinity. I know it's not completely good name for it, but it's called BEM masculinity. So we make a median split here. So we have women with low and high level of masculinity, BEM masculinity, and then we have two kinds of relationships, long-term relationship, short-term relationship, and then we have the level of masculinity in the male face, who is considered as the most attractive. And we see like this. Female participants with high BEM masculinity, they rate like this. So 0 is the most masculine face, and 700 is the completely androgynous face. And we see that both for short-term mating, it's called here, short-term mating and long-term mating, these women rate that the quite masculine, but not the most masculine face is the most attractive. So quite masculine, but not the most masculine man is the most attractive, both for short-term and long-term relationships. While if we look at these women with low BEM masculinity, then we see a differentiation here. For long-term mating, they show a similar relationship here. Quite masculine, but not the most masculine, is the most attractive. But for short-term mating, it's a linear relationship. The more masculine, the better. It would be interesting if they had even more masculine faces here. Why do we have this differentiation among these women? Why do they make a differentiation between a short-term and long-term relationship? What is a masculine man good for? An extremely masculine man, what is he good for?
Fighting and driving cars fast.
Having sex with. Why? Because he's very masculine. It indicates he has very well-functioning immune system. What is his immune system good for you for? What kind of... It's not your immune system. Well, if I have sex with him and we receive children together, those children will have a very well-functioning immune system. So the use of a very masculine man is mainly in the reproductive section, in order to receive children with a well-functioning immune system. There's also something called the sexy sons hypothesis. The best thing is, for women, the best thing is to get children with a sexy man. It doesn't matter why he's sexy. As long as he's considered as sexy by other women, if I get a son, he will also be sexy. I don't know why he's sexy, but he is sexy. So by having children with a sexy man, you will receive the highest amount of grandchildren. No, it doesn't matter why he's sexy, as long as he's sexy. So a very masculine man here, the use of him is mainly in the area of sexual reproduction. Why is he not considered the most attractive for a long-term relationship? Why not? An extremely masculine man. I think you were pointing at that hypothesis. Why? What will he do? A very masculine man.
Yeah, he might be considered too attractive, and I mean too desirable.
Yes?
So you might not think that you will be able to hold on to it.
No, and there is some indications that very masculine men, they tend to have a lot but short relationships. They don't stay around. They will move on. And if they're considered as very attractive for short-term relationship, then they have a big market to pick on in that area. Something else negative with very masculine man. What did a very masculine appearance indicate? More dominant. High testosterone levels. Is it good to have a fellow around home in the apartment who's oozing with testosterone? No, he will break the furniture and so on. Maybe you could have him there for a weekend, but not in the long term. He's dangerous to be having around. So okay, for a weekend at the spa, but then I go home to my more moderate man here. There are some data indicating that among women who are both married and have a lover, okay, then the lover tends to be more masculine and the man at home tends to be less masculine. It's less common with the other way around. Okay. Why wouldn't women with high BEM masculinity make this distinction? They don't make any distinction. They make the same assessment, both for long-term, the same rating both for long-term and short-term rating. Well, I don't have any conclusive answer to that, but there are some indications, for instance, that at least among women, BEM masculinity is associated with self-esteem. So women with high level of BEM masculinity also tend to have high level of self-esteem. And it's possible, I don't know if it's like this, it's possible that if you have a good self-esteem, then you don't make much of a distinction between short-term and long-term relationship. You think, okay, it's a short-term, but of course he will love me, everybody loves me, I do. Okay, so if I want it to become a long-term relationship, it's up to me. I decide if it's going to be. So then you don't make these distinctions so sharply. If you have high self-confidence, high self-esteem. I think they mention something like that in this paper. While if you have low masculinity associated with low self-esteem, then you might think, okay, this guy, he will not stay around, he will move away, so he might be good for a short-term relationship, but not in the long term. In the same study, they also asked women, where were they in their menstrual cycle? And there are quite a lot of studies that have studied this also. So that's actually not the actual average male, the perceived average male. This is the optimal man, the most attractively rated man for women who are in the non-fertile phase of their menstrual cycle. But among women who are in the fertile phase of the menstrual cycle, that's the most attractive man. and that phase is higher on the masculinity scale here. So women in their fertile phase of the menstrual cycle prefer more masculine men than when they're not in the fertile phase of the menstrual cycle. Why? Well, maybe the explanation could be something similar. He is good for sexual reproduction, to get children with good immune system, well-functioning immune system. And if they're sons, they will become sexy also. Okay? So he's useful for that. But that usefulness is also related to where I'm in the menstrual cycle. If I'm in the fertile phase, well, then he's useful, but not otherwise so much. Of course, they're not thinking like this. At least I don't think they're thinking like this, that, oh, I'm in the fertile phase, so I should go for this more masculine man. But it's still shown in the data how they actually do their ratings. There seems to be an association between women's phase in the menstrual cycle and what they find as the most attractive. Again, this is only for the women who have low level of BEM masculinity. For women who have higher scores on BEM masculinity, we don't find this distinction. See, so it's a personality factor here affecting as well. So it's a three-way interaction. Sex difference in this. This is from a huge study, David Buss, 37 different cultures. Sweden was there also. Well, a lot of countries. And we have, it's more than 10,000 subjects, participants, respondents in this study. And they all get a long list of characteristics. And they're asked, how important is this characteristic in a partner for a long-term relationship? And the rating is made on a scale from 0 to 3. So here is, how important is it that the partner is attractive, physically attractive? And you see that men have a higher rating. And if I remember right, men have made higher ratings on these characteristics in 36 of those 37 cultures. If I remember right, I'm not completely sure, but if I remember right, Spain was the only difference. There, men and women made the same level of rating. But otherwise we see that although women seem to rate this as quite important, men tend to rate it as more important. It's more important that the partner is physically attractive. Then of course we would ask why. Why would men focus on physical attractiveness to a higher degree than women? Why?
Higher correlation with
fertility. Yes, that's the evolutionary explanation. Women's degree of fertility can be seen in their looks to a higher degree than is the case among men. So higher association between fertility and appearance among women than among men. Therefore, according to this theory, men have evolved through the evolutionary history stronger focus on this factor when they're choosing a partner than is the case for women. Okay, could we figure out some other kind of explanation? Well, if it's not evolutionary, there might be some kind of social factors in it. Social structural explanation. And this, according to this kind of explanation, there might be some kind of prevailing norms that prescribe sexual restraint for women. Women should be sexually restrained. A kind of social norm. And one part of that norm could be that women should not pay much attention to how a man looks when they're picking a partner. So it could be a part of some kind of social norm. That's one possibility here. Because men in all cultures, I guess, tend to make more money and be more independent than women. Then women have to focus on economical factors to a high degree when they're choosing a partner than men do. And if you have to have a stronger focus on one factor, economical factors, then there is less room to be picky about appearance. So that's one possibility. And there is some data in accordance with this. There are some data that indicate that if women become independent, rich women tend to be picky about appearance in their male partners. Madonna would never marry an ugly guy, even if he was rich. She's independent, so she can be picky about appearance instead.
But isn't she picky about his makers?
Well, maybe. Well, yeah. Guy Ritchie, but they're not married anymore, I guess. But in a more normal range. So the more independent women are, the more money they're making themselves, the less they have to focus on this factor when they're choosing a partner, and then they can afford the luxury to be picky about appearance, which indicates that then they become picky about appearance. So it's a luxury, and if you can afford it, we pick this luxury. Similarity, another factor that seems to affect attraction/attractiveness. No, more attraction here, not so much ratings of attractiveness. Well, we have a study here, but then it didn't find anything here, really. Well, I had to find some study like this. I was looking for, it must be some kind of study like this. So I found this. We have 20 females and 21 males, quite young, British students. Okay, so if we morph all the female faces, we receive that face. So that's the average female face, and that's the average male face. So then we'll do like this for all the participants. So here we have one of the female participants. So we measure how does her appearance, her face, differ from the average female face. And I don't know exactly, but she seems to have a quite round face compared with the average. Okay? So we measure the difference between her and the average female. We take that difference and we apply it to the average male face. So what we receive then is a male face. It's a male. It looks like a male. Male face, but that's made to be similar to her own appearance. We can apply the difference to the average male face, but in the opposite direction. And we receive a face that is, so to speak, the opposite of her own face. So they do like this both for male and female participants. They make a range of photos that either look similar to themselves or opposite of themselves. And in the middle of this range, we have the average male and female face. And they have a look at this range of photos and pick out the most attractive of those. And what do we see? Well, we see that both women's and men's average rating is close to the middle of the range. So neither female or male participants tends to be attracted by a face that is close to their own or opposite of their own, but rather of the average of the opposite sex. So to speak, both this woman and this woman would find that man as more attractive than those that look like they have a similar appearance as themselves. So no finding about similarity here. Averageness have a stronger effect than similarity or dissimilarity. However, if you look at how people partner up, how they combine to make partners, then we see that there is positive associations here. So this is correlations. We take a big number of couples, and we measure different things about the male in the partner and the woman in the partner in this couple. And we see here for age, for instance, there is a correlation about 0.9. So if we take natural occurring couples, the older the woman is, the older her male partner tends to be. The younger she is, the younger her male partner tends to be. Are you surprised? Young young men and women tend to be in couples, and old men and women tend to be in couples. No, I guess you're not surprised. I would be surprised if you were surprised. Then you would have a completely different picture of what I have received in my life. Height, there is positive correlation. Tall women tend to have a male partner that is tall, and short women tend to have a male partner that is short, and so on. BMI, thin, not a very strong correlation here, 0.14, but still some positive correlation. IQ, well, quite strong correlation. Smart women tend to have a smart male partner, and those with less intelligence tend to find each other somehow. Empathy, personality factors here, empathy, level of education, well, social factor, family economy during their upbringing, so socio-economic background, some positive correlation. Rich people tend to make couples, and poor people tend to make couples, and so on. Some behavior factors here, exercise, smoking, alcohol consumption. It's all positive correlations here. People tend to have a partner who's more like themselves, both on cognitive factors, personality factors, behavior factors, social factors, than is expected by pure chance. Stronger association on some factors, weaker association on some factors. And if this is the case, this is how people make couples, then we, of course, ask ourselves, why? Why do those love each other? No, I don't know if they do. Why? Why do people tend to have partners who resemble themselves? Why? Well, one possibility, of course, that partners become similar. And that could be true on some factors. If your partner smokes, of course you start smoking also. Oh, I don't know. And so on. You become more similar. But there is some indication that this is not the full truth, because people tend to be similar to each other even if they haven't been partners for a very long time. So they tend to be similar already when they become partners. Okay? Another possibility might be that we tend to meet those who are similar to ourselves rather than those who are dissimilar. Intelligent people meet each other when they're studying psychology at Karolinska. Right? People with less intelligence, they meet each other on the stands at Söderstadion and so on. Or wherever those people go, I don't know. So that's one possibility. And of course we have to meet in order to become partners. So that's one possibility. Another more complex factor is evolutionary theory. The genetic similarity theory. Okay, according to this theory states that if we have a characteristic that has a genetic base, those genes increase the likelihood to survive into coming generations if they at the same time make us attracted by people who have the same phenotypic characteristics as ourselves. Because there's an association between phenotype and genotype. So people who resemble us, they have the same phenotype, tend to also have a more similar genotype to us than people who don't look like us. And if I would become a partner of somebody who has a phenotypic resemblance to myself, the genes that make us look similar increase their likelihood to survive into coming generations. As an example, I have genes that give me blue eyes. How will those genes who give me blue eyes increase likelihood of surviving into coming generations? By making me attracted of women who have blue eyes rather than by brown eyes. Because then there will be more alleles for blue eyes in the coming generation compared with if I would become attracted by somebody who has brown eyes. As an easy example. Right? So, according to this, it might be that genes make us tend to become attracted by people who have phenotypic resemblance to ourselves, because that increases the chances of our genes' survival into coming generations. One prediction made from these hypotheses is that in that case, because some characteristics have a higher degree of heredity than others. For instance, eye color, a very strong heredity. Therefore, a big motive for assortative mating, as this is called. A big motive to be attracted by somebody with the same phenotypic characteristics. While other factors, I don't know, tendency to wear shirts like this. Okay, I hope it's not heredity. So, if I had genes, if I would tend to become attracted by women who's wearing the similar shirts, I wouldn't. There's no genes that would have advantage by this, because I hope there's no genes that make me having this taste. So these, according to this genetic similarity theory, the matching, the level of assortative mating should be highest on characteristics with the highest level of heredity. Okay, so let's have a look. There is not many studies about this theory, but this is from one. So we have some studies where they measure both the level of assortative mating, the matching among couples, and the level of heredity for different characteristics. So both are measured with correlations, and then we have a look at the correlation between the correlations. And we see that all the way here it's positive correlations. Which means that the level of assortative mating is higher on characteristics with a high level of heredity instead of those with low level of heredity. Is this difficult? Well, that's what it indicates. Well, let's have a look at one plot here, for instance. Don't mind the names here. I just try to give them some names. So here we have different cognitive tests, and we measure the level of heredity on these tests. Some of them have higher level of heredity than others. And then we also measure spouse correlation on those cognitive tests. And we see this positive correlation between correlations. The higher the level of heredity, the higher the level of spouse correlation. And this is accordance with the genetic similarity theory. I should maybe mention that this Philip Rushton is a very controversial person. So, if you I mentioned this in one interview and became, well, I didn't receive hate mail from it, but almost. So he's very controversial. So that's one possibility. But then, of course, we will ask ourselves, why don't we all marry our siblings then? Because then we would have the highest level of both phenotypic and genotypic, and especially genotypic matching. So why don't we all marry our siblings? Is there some kind of risk, danger with having a partner that is very similar to yourself? Do you know of any such danger? Too many fingers. Why do you get too many fingers? What's bad with inbreeding? What is inbreeding? The chromosomes get screwed up. Why? Why it's the offspring gets some or affected by some genetic dysfunctions? Why do the probability that offspring is affected by dysfunctions, why does that increase if the parents are closely related to each other? Why? Because this might come as good or bad news for you. We are all carrying around genetic dysfunctions. genetic problems. But it has no negative effect on our functioning. Why?
Because they are balanced up by the other parents.
Yeah. Many of these genetic dysfunctions, they are recessive. So you need 2 dysfunctional alleles for it to have a negative effect on your functioning. So it's enough to have 1 well-functioning allele to manage. But if I have 1 dysfunctional allele, of course, it's high probability that my sister is carrying the same dysfunctional allele. So if we get offspring together, there's increased chance that the offspring will have this dysfunctional allele in both slots, and therefore it will have a negative effect on their functioning. And of course, one possible problem with this is that the offspring will not be fertile. So if there have been people who are tended to be attracted by their siblings, they had probably just as good lives as everybody else, but they didn't get any grandchildren, or at least less grandchildren. There is one gene family, as it's called, that's called major histocompatibility complex on chromosome 6. And it's often called this instead among humans. Human leukocyte antigen, but it's carried around by other mammals as well. And what this complex does is that it synthesizes protein that are important for the immune system's functioning. And also there are some indications that this major histocompatibility complex, MHC, it affects how we smell. What kind of indications are there for this? Well, this, for instance. So we have male subjects, they sleep in t-shirts. And then we take out the pot under the armpit, and we put it in tubes, and then we let female participants smell these tubes. And say, how good is this smell? How pleasant is this smell? Then we also had a look at these males' MHC, and also the female participants' MHC. And we make 2 main groupings here. So when a female smells a t-shirt, that t-shirt comes from a male who is either similar to themselves when it comes to the MHC or dissimilar to themselves when it comes to MHC. And then we see if this affects their rating of pleasantness. And we see that these women tend to rate the smell as more pleasant if the smell comes from a man whose MHC is dissimilar to their own, compared with if it comes from a man whose MHC is similar to their own. Does this seem to be a good way to function? Well, the thought here is that it's not good to get offspring with somebody whose MHC is very similar to your own. Because then these offspring will have less variation in its MHC, and it will receive less protection against different kind of pathogens. So it's good to have a variation, big variation in the outform of the MHC. And that you get if you get offspring with somebody whose MHC is dissimilar to your own. So, and if this is connected to smell, I don't know if people tend to partner up with somebody who they think smell better than others, but if this would be the case, this would be a function that tends to lead to healthier kids than if it functioned in the opposite way. But then we see here that this functions in the opposite direction for some women, for some female participants. For some female participants, we get exactly the opposite result. Who are those? That is for female participants who take oral contraceptives. They take the pill. So women who take oral contraceptives find the smell of similar men whose MHC is similar to their own as more pleasant than those whose MHC is dissimilar to their own. Exactly the opposite result. And then, of course, we could ask if it seems like we could give a rational explanation for these results for women who don't take the pill. Why do we get the opposite results for those who take the pill? Well, it's more or less speculation, but Wedekind and company here, what kind of effect does oral contraceptives have on the female body? Well, to some degree, it's like a faked pregnancy. It has similar effect to some degree on the female body as being pregnant. I don't know much about this, but it says like that in this paper. And so it could be that women function differently if they're pregnant or not pregnant. So if they would be pregnant, they would prefer the smell of people who are similar to themselves compared with those who are dissimilar to themselves. And one possible argument for this, one possible reason for this would be that if they are already pregnant, it would be good for them to be surrounded by relatives for protection and so on. Well, I don't know if that is true, but that's one theory that has been put forth. This is data from a later study. We have data for couples, and for every couple, we measure to what extent how similar is their MHC. Okay, so for some couples, their MHC are more similar, for others it's more dissimilar. And then we ask them about their sex life. So this is data for the women. And there are some indications that women are less happy with their sex life if their partner have MHC that is similar to their own. They are less sexually responsive. They are less attracted by the partner. They have extra pair sex to a higher degree. They reject their partners to a higher degree. So women seem to be less satisfied with their sex life if their partner have a MHC that is similar to their own. The more similar, the less happy they are about it. So some indications that it's not good to be too close to each other, too like each other. At least not when it comes to this MHC, which would affect the functioning of the immune system. But we have some other data, so now we have two contradiction parts of data here and results. Some indicate it's good to be dissimilar, some indicates that people tend to be similar. So what kind of conclusion will we come to here? If we have TS and anti-TS, then Jung says we will get, don't you know you're young? Well, maybe it's best to be, there's some optimal level of difference. Okay, so here we have an Icelandic study. So we have data for all of them, all Icelandic couples, where the woman is born between 1800 and 1965. God bless Iceland. It's such a small country you can have data like this. All those couples from Iceland. And then they calculate for all Icelandic couples, they calculate the level of relatedness between the woman and the man. So for all couples, we have level of relatedness. Then we have a look here. So up here, panel A here, we have number of children. So here is the level of relatedness up to 0.03125. Second cousin, you think. Yes, exactly. That's second cousin. Second cousin is if your parents are cousins. In Swedish we call it sysslingar. Sorry, in English it's more boring. Second cousins. Your parents are cousins. So, for every couple that are more closely related than second cousins, they have the highest number of offspring. They receive the highest number of children. So the less related, so we have up to second cousin, up to third cousin, fourth cousin, and so on. So the less related the couples are, the spouses are, the less children they receive. So the more closely related, the better. Or Or, well, for number of offspring, it's the best. But here we see number of grandchildren. Now it's not longer the best option to be married to a second cousin. Now the best is third, fourth cousin. Why do not second cousins get the highest number of grandchildren if they get the highest number of children? Because they have a smaller frequency of their children in their turn get kids. So although they get the highest number of kids, they don't get the highest number of reproducing kids. And why don't those kids reproduce as much as for those with where the parents are third or fourth cousins? Because they die younger. So this is the life expectancy for the children whose parents are second cousins, third cousins, and so on. So although they receive the highest number of kids, they tend to die younger, and therefore they don't get the highest number of grandchildren. So the optimal match here is third, fourth cousin. Those receive the highest number of grandchildren. So now you just go home and ask your parents. I have any idea myself who might be my third or fourth cousin, but we could of course ask why. Why don't children to second cousins or closer, why do they die younger? Why?
Well, it could be that they just have a larger quantity of genetic difficulties.
Yeah. Something like that. Their immune system don't work so well. Well, maybe. I was thinking maybe that more culture in the other end. But here it could be that it's too close. They get some genetic dysfunctions. But in the other end, we could ask, if we look at number of grandchildren, why don't those who are the least related, why don't they get more grandchildren than those who are third, fourth cousins? Why? They should receive even healthier kids. And we see here that the life expectancy of their kids is just as long as for the third, fourth cousins. But they receive less grandchildren through those kids. Why?
That could be sociocultural, in that people of higher cultural, higher social standing might be the ones who, in a higher degree, meet people who are further from them relationship-wise, whilst people of a low social cultural standing might be the ones who are forced to marry people with which they're closely related.
Yeah, and they get more kids. They don't, they don't control the number of kids they receive to the same degree. That's a good explanation. It could be that this is to a high degree richer people. And richer people might tend to keep down their number of kids, and therefore they don't receive so many grandchildren. Another possibility might also be those who are the least related. How do they differ from those who are married who are third, fourth cousins? That could be one explanation. But why your spouses not related to each other? Why? What have happened? Imagine this is Iceland. It's not a huge place. Well, it could, for instance, indicate that one of these persons have moved away from their original habitat. Because if they had stayed in their original habitat, there would be nobody else to marry to than a third, fourth cousin. So they moved from their original habitat into the huge metropolis of Reykjavik, or something like that. And there they found a spouse and they married. But then they're, of course, not so closely related. But if one of them have moved from their original habitat, then they, of course, have not as much a social network to be backed up by. So if they're going to make a decision, should we have more kids? No, we can't have more kids because we don't have this social backup. Could be something like that also. So it could be different kind of social factors affecting it. So it's not sure it's genetic effects. This could be social factors that affect through marrying patterns and so on. Well, this brings us to this factor, social and economic status. I didn't have so much here, but we should mention this. We saw before that in this study from 37 cultures, men put a stronger emphasis on attractive appearance than women do. But if we look at another factor here, good economic prospects, then women tend to put stronger emphasis on this than men. Women tend to rate good economic prospects as a more important factor for a partner to have than men rate it. And there are some other studies indicating this. This is among, well, it has a few years old here, but it's medical students, and they're asked, when you marry, when you have a partner, would you like this partner to have higher occupational status than you, same status, lower status, higher income, same income, lower income? And we see here that no man would like to have a female partner with higher status and a higher income than themselves. And no woman would like to have a male partner with a lower status or lower income than themselves. Another study, we have participants, male and female participants. They have a look at the picture of a person of the opposite sex. And then they were told, imagine you have started to work in a new workplace, and some are told, imagine this is your assistant. Some others are told, imagine this is your colleague, and a third group is told, imagine this is your boss. And then they are asked to rate, how attractive is this person for a long-term relationship? And we see while women don't make any difference here, men would prefer this person as a long-term partner if it's their assistant rather than their boss. So no effect there on female ratings, but on men. If sex difference in the preference for high status, if it exists, how come? Let's have again an evolutionary and a more social explanation, possible explanation. What would an evolutionary possible explanation be? During the evolutionary history, during the time of pregnancy, women have relied on getting external support. During that time, during pregnancy, you have to have external support. While for men don't have that kind of periods. They don't get pregnant. They don't have these periods where they rely on external support. Except when they're very young and old. Therefore, according to this evolutionary possible explanation, because women have relied on external support, they have evolved a tendency to put focus on this. While men have not relied on external support, they haven't been any reason for them to evolve this kind of focus on this factor. So that kind of difference. One social structural explanation put emphasis on the prevailing gender roles, because in many societies the prevailing gender norms is that men should provide and women should take care of home and children. So if those are the gender roles, and you as a woman are looking for a partner, well, you're looking for a partner who is good at doing the job they're going to do, to be a provider. While if those are the gender roles, and you as a man are looking for a good partner, you're looking for a partner who's good at doing what they're supposed to do, taking care of the home and giving birth to children. So that would be in accordance with the gender roles. So let's have a look at some data. So this is from another study that uses the same data, uses the data from BUS study. So they take these 37 cultures, and then for all of these 37 cultures, they have also some measures of gender equality. So then we can have a look at the sex difference in preferences if it's related to the level of gender equality in the societies. And the answer is yes. So here, for instance, how important is the fact that a partner has a good earning capacity? So if we have a look at the sex difference, the difference between the ratings between men and women, because we have a difference we can calculate for each country. And for each country, we have two different measures of gender equality. And we see, these is the ones. And we see that we have negative correlations here. Which means that the more equal the society is, the smaller is the difference between the rating made by men and women. So if we take Sweden, for instance, in Sweden, women and men might not make such a big difference in their ranking, in their rating about how important it is for a partner to have a good earning capacity. While in some other country, I don't know, well, they had South African data, for instance. If the gender equality is much less, the difference between the rating made by men and women is also much bigger. So, and here also some other factor, good housekeeper. How important is it for a partner to be a good housekeeper? We see here, for instance, for the men's rating, it has negative correlation between the gender equality. So the higher the degree of gender equality, the less emphasis men put on this factor. And I don't know, have you ever heard in Sweden a man say, well, I would like to be with her because she's probably a good cook? No. I never met anybody putting any emphasis on this factor. While in other countries they might do that, because that will be her role in the marriage. Therefore you put emphasis on this. So this indicates that social structural factors have an effect on this gender difference in ratings. Exposure, another factor. Have you heard about the mere exposure effect? You have. The more you're exposed for stimuli, the better you like it. Classical study made by Zayens, as I learned it's supposed to be pronounced. The more people are exposed to false Turkish adjectives, the more they like them. So, the more times you're exposed to the word Sivandra, it's a fake word. The more you're exposed to it, the more you like it. So those who are exposed to it with high frequency like it more than those who are exposed to it for low frequency. The same for Chinese faked characteristics. People think that figure looks nicer if they've been exposed to it with high frequency compared with if they've been exposed for it with low frequency. So exposure, increased exposure is associated with increased liking. The same with faces here. How favorability of attitude, it says there. I took this from the original. So people think that guy looks like a nicer guy if they've seen his face a lot of times compared with if they've only seen it a few times. It's good news, right? People might think you look horrible in the beginning, but just expose them to yourself and they will like you in the end. There's one funny study. Have you heard of these? People take photos of people's faces and then we make the photo, but we also make a reverse of it. So left side becomes right side and the opposite. And then we let people have a look at this. So it's the photo of themselves, the original photo and the reversed photo, and they ask, which of these look better? What do people tend to say? And they're not exactly the same because we are unfortunately not completely symmetrical. Which photo do people think, in which of them do they think their self look the best?
Reverse, because it's the one you see in the mirror.
Yeah. The thing is, the one you see in the mirror, that is not what you look like. That's the reversed picture of you. That's why we all tend to think when we see photos of ourselves, we think, shit, do I really look like that? And the horrible answer is, yes, that's exactly what you look like. The one you see in the mirror in the morning, that's not you. It's the reverse of you. But what did we do more with these photos? People tended to think that the reverse picture of themselves looked nicer, but then we take the same photos and show them to friends of these people. What do they think? Yeah, they think the original photo looks the best. Because that's how they tend to see you. The way you actually look. The way you look like on the photo. So if you just expose yourself to the... Just put photos of yourself around all your apartment and so on. And you will learn to like how you look on those. Then maybe you will not like what you see in the mirror on the other side. And you know about the imprinting, well, maybe I shouldn't jump to conclusions here, but imprinting effect. Konrad Lorenz here, famous for it. Okay? So he has these Gieslings, I think it's said like that. Gieslings following him around. Why are they following him around? Gieslings are usually not following bearded Austrian men around. I think it's Austrian. Why are they following him around?
Because he made them hatch next to it. So in the first days or so, he made them think that he was their mother.
Yeah, something like that. He separated them from their mother and exposed them for himself somehow. And these geese, they're not very clever. But somehow, I don't know, of course they don't think so much, but somehow they seem to think that Konrad Lorenz here is their mother, so they're following him around. Okay. Usually, what geese are exposed to when they're born is, of course, their mother. So it's then they follow this around. But if you break that association and we expose them to Konrad Lorenz instead, then they will follow Konrad Lorenz around. I don't know. There should be studies. What will happen when these geese become adults and it's time to reproduce? What will happen? What will happen? There are some indications, not very conclusive data, but I think there is at least some indications of this. What will happen? They will walk around looking for bearded Austrian men to try to have. Well, I don't know. It seems like geese don't understand that they're geese. They don't walk around and think, I'm a goose. Now when it's time to reproduce, I'm looking for other geese. No, they don't think that. They are exposed to Konrad Lorenz during some period in their childhood, in their geeslinghood, and then they grow up and they seem to think, oh, that's the appearance I should go for. Of course, Austrian men will not, I think, hopefully, will not reproduce with them, so they will not manage with this. Okay. You see where I'm coming? So let's change the geese against Hungarians instead. So here we have Hungarian men. And for every man, and they have a partner, female partner. So for every one of these men, we get a photo of their mother, when their mother was quite young, about the same age as they are now. And then we have, for every man, a picture of their female partner, a photo of their female partner. And then we have a lot of setups like this. We have a picture of a mother here, and then we have a picture of 4 women here. And one of these 4 is the female partner of that mother's son. And then we let people have a look at this, and in every setup they're asked to rank those. Which one of these 4 women is most likely resemble that one most? Second most, third most, and fourth most. So if there is no association between these men's mother's appearance and their female partner's appearance, how often should their female partner be ranked as the most resembling? What is the error level here, the chance level? 25%, 1 in every 4 times. But do we receive 25%? No, we receive more than 40%. So in more than 40% of the cases, people say that this man's female partner is the one that is most resembling of their mother. And this is higher than chance level. So Hungarian men tend to a higher level than chance have female partners that look like their mother. How come? What kind of possible explanations is there for this? Well, of course, one possibility is an imprinting effect. They've been exposed to the picture of their mother, okay, when they grow up, and then when they become adults, for some reason they seem to be attracted by women who look like that. That's one possibility, imprinting effect. There are a few possibilities. Another possibility might be that these men are not only the sons of their mother, they're also the sons of their father. And maybe their father for some reason are attracted by women who look like this, like these men's mother. That's why they became their father and mother. And maybe these men have genetically inherited his father's preference for women that look like this. So it might be a question about pure genetic inheritance rather than an imprinting effect. All right, there are a few other possibilities. How could we make those two possible explanations divide? A pure genetic inheritance or an imprinting effect?
By twin study, for example.
By?
A twin study, for example, between twins raised without their mothers, for example. If you have one that's raised with their mother and one that's not.
That's one possibility, because then you have the same genetic inheritance but different imprinting effects. That's one possibility. Twin studies. They didn't have here, but they had an adoption study. And now we look at women instead. So we have women who've been adopted. And now they have a male partner. So for every woman, we get a picture. So this man has an adoptive daughter. So this is the adoptive father of one of these women. When he was quite young. About the same age as this woman is now. Okay, and we have 4 pictures here. And one of these 4 is the male partner of this man's adoptive daughter. And we have a few of these setups. And we let people have a look at this. And again rate. Which of these 4 is the one who resembles that man most? Second most, third most. So now, of course, these women have not inherited their adoptive mother's preference for men that look like that, because they're not genetically related to their mother. But they've been exposed to this man and his looks during their childhood, because they were adopted. So we can separate those two. Okay, which is the right answer here, by the way, do you think? That's the one. That's the male partner of this man's adoptive daughter. And again, the chance level is 25%, where we see again that in almost 40% of the cases, people tend to point out the adoptive daughter's male partner as the one who is most resembling their adoptive father. So it indicates that it's at least not purely genetic inheritance here. It seems like there might be some kind of imprinting effect here. However, do we always like what we're exposed to? If Konrad Lorenz would have kicked those geeslings when they're born, would they follow him around? I hope not. So it's not only a question about exposure, but also about conditioning, right? So let's have a look. So this is from the first study. We have data from men. So they also fill in questionnaires. So here is scores of the mother's rejection. So how rejecting have your mother been towards you? Okay? So we see the more rejecting mother they've had, the lower is the probability that they will have a female partner that resembles their mother. The better relation they had with their mother, the higher the probability that they will have a female partner that resembles their mother. And here is the same, but the scale is different here. Scores of the adoptive father's emotional warmth. So the higher the value, the better the relationship. And the higher the probability that they will have male partner that resembles their adoptive father. The worse relationship they had with their adoptive father, the lower the probability that they will have a male partner that resembles him. So there seems to be some kind of conditioning also. We tend to have partners that look like our parents if we have a good relationship with our parents. If we don't have, I don't know, maybe we're trying to get something opposite. So both exposure and some kind of conditioning. You had Magnus, he might have told this about his own research. Do you recognize this? I like to talk about this because it's so kinky. This is what we do at Karolinska. This is the kind of research we do. Okay, we find pages on the internet. Might come as a shock for you, but they are there. Pages specialized for people who have a sexual preference for pregnant, lactating women. Pregnancy fetishism. Pages for those. And they receive some respondents here. So we have the participants here are people with pregnancy fetishism. And we ask them, how old are you? What sex are you? Do you have any siblings? What is the age of your siblings? What is the sex of your siblings? And so on. Where do we get here? What do people with pregnancy fetishes, what kind of siblings do they tend to have?
Older siblings.
Older. They tend to have younger siblings. For those who have one sibling, so this is for those who have one sibling, most of them tend to have one younger sibling rather than one older sibling. Those who have two siblings tend to have two younger siblings rather than two older siblings. And then, of course, it becomes more data points. So people with pregnancy fetishes tend to have younger siblings rather than older siblings. Why? What have they been exposed to? Their pregnant mother. They've seen their pregnant mother during their childhood, if they have younger siblings. If they only have older siblings, they never seen their mother pregnant. So this seems to be associated with the probability of getting a nice little pregnancy fetishes when you become older. And this is true both for, of course, most of these are men. Okay? But there are a few also lesbian women with pregnancy fetishes. And it's true for them also. They also tend to have younger siblings rather than older siblings. Okay, we have room for one more diagram there. What will we have a look at in this one? If we go out and expose ourselves for geese somewhere here, will they start following us? No, why not? There's what?
Now I guess the last table will be the age in which they had siblings.
Yeah, the age difference, exactly. And we see here, the critical period here is where you have a difference is between 2 and 5 years old. So you have increased probability of getting a pregnancy fetishism if you have a younger sibling who is between 2 and 5 years younger than you are. That's the window. It's such beautiful research. Of course, it's correlational studies, but I don't know. It so fits with different imprinting theories and so on. Okay, should I say? Let's have one last. I go straight to this. One last study. Others' opinion. We talked about conformity. Okay, so here we have both female and male participants. So they look at 8 pairs of faces like this. And for every pair of face, they rate who is the most attractive of these two guys and how much. So this one is much more attractive, all the way to that. This one is much more attractive. So 8 pairs of faces. And they do this 2 times. before and after social information. And what is the social information here? Well, it's very simple. Visual. They get to see different pictures here. So here, for instance, that's the two guys we had in the former picture. So this is the social information some of them receive. A female face in between who looks at that guy and is smiling. Or looks at that guy and is not smiling. So you either receive the social information that some other woman is looking at this guy and smiling, or has a neutral face. And then they rate these faces again. Who of these is most attractive? These two guys. And how much? And then we look at how they change their rating from before to after, and how it's affected by the social information they receive. And what do we see? Well, this is the female participants. Participants increase their rated attractiveness of a male face if they receive the social information that another woman is looking at him and smiling. And they decrease their attractiveness rating if they receive the information that another woman is looking at him and not smiling. For men, for some reason, we receive exactly the opposite. They don't like men who women are looking at and smiling at. Okay. But this we receive for women. Of course, there should be some study that have looked at the same, how men change their rating of female attractiveness, depending on what kind of social information they receive. But there are some indications that it's mainly female that are affected by social information in the rating of male attractiveness, rather than the other way around. And then, of course, we would ask why? Why? I mentioned the hypothesis earlier. This is in accordance with that hypothesis. Is it very clear for us that, for instance, is it very clear for us that guy is more attractive than that guy? Is it a clear-cut decision to make? Yeah, he's more attractive. Oh, and I guess they made this that it wouldn't be very clear. Okay, so how do we make our decision? Well, if we see, somebody else seems to think he's attractive, because why would they otherwise be looking at him and smiling? Okay, then we're affected by this information and increase the attractiveness rating of him, compared with if we receive the information that somebody is looking at him with a stern face. Okay, there's something called the sexy sons hypothesis. And according to this, the best thing for women is to have a sexy male partner. And it doesn't matter why he's sexy. As long as he's sexy, as long as other women think he's attractive. Because if I get kids and I get sons and they inherit their father's appearance, well, then they will also be found attractive by other women. And I will receive a lot of grandchildren. So no matter, the thing here is to go for what others think. If others think it's attractive, it's good. It's a good partner for me. Why wouldn't men think in the same direction? At least not to the same degree. All men think he's attractive, she is attractive, so will I. Why not? Okay, should I say something about this Guppy study? Anyway. We have goldfish here. You see, 2 male goldfish here. And we put them in an aquarium in either end here. And they're in glass containers here, so they can't swim around. They can't swim around. And then we put the female here in a glass container close to this one. And she can't swim around. We force them together. And the thing with goldfish is, if we force one male and one female close to each other, they will immediately start courtship. Well, at least they start dancing with each other in front of each other and so on. So, and we have another female goldfish here in a container, and she can see this. She receives this social information. And then we take that female goldfish away. And we let this one in here. And she can choose where to swim. And she swims there in 85% of the cases. In 85% of the cases, she makes what she thinks is the same choice as the female before her did. If we change, we have male goldfish here instead, and we have female goldfish there, they will not follow that social information. Why not?
They think she's already been mated with.
Yeah, she's already mated with, so she's a lost cause, so to speak. Well, among fish, that's, well, that would be true among mammals at least. While a male who has already mated is not a lost cause, he might be available still. And if the other one thought he's sexy, it's better to have children with him, because then I will get sexy sons. Rather than that one that for some reason I don't know don't seem to attract females. And these have been found in many taxa. I've read about one study about different birds also. They seem to function in a similar way. And this is usually found among females and young females, not so much among older females. Why don't older females follow social information to the same degree as younger females? Why? When do we follow social information? When do we have a look what everybody else is doing and copy their behavior? When?
We don't know.
When we don't know. When we don't have the experience to make our own decisions. It might be that older females, they made this choice a few times before and they know what's best. So those young stupid ones, they make the wrong choices. This male is better. They don't follow. So it might explain phenomena like this, for instance. It seems like it's mainly young females who do this. It seems like it's a phenomena in that part of the population. I mean, objectively, how good looking is he? But if everybody else thinks so, it must be right. It seems like men don't do things like this. Okay. That's all I had. Or most of it. Thank you. Good afternoon.